2. I have a special surprise for you guys, and we are live here on the PHU Dynasty podcast. This is episode 80, and boy, do we have a show for you today. We have been off for a few weeks, but we are back, and we are right on the doorstep of the 2024 playoffs, which will feature two of the folks that I'm joined with today. We have the chili cheese fries holding the one slot right now, and it looks like it's going to stay that way. For at least getting a bye, we'll put it that way, just in case the long gamers get the win against the Battle Axes, which should also be an excellent game. But we have Adam Thibodeau with us, and we have Sean O'Shea with us as usual. So we have just an awesome slate of games to talk about from last week. But first, we kind of want to just talk about just the overall standings as things set right now. Really, we could start kind of towards the bottom, actually, because the Kentucky Elk got their 1-12 record, and it is going to be impossible for the Armadillos to catch up at this point. In a spirited battle last week with the Lambs in an 86-81 point game, Marvin Mims put up 17 points and somehow almost made it a game. But yes, the Lambs get the win, somehow get to 5-8. Could potentially be a 6-8 team, which would be unbelievable. Considering that he was a number one hopeful. So we have the Elk picking first in the draft. They hold their own pick, so they will be picking first. And the Armadillos dropped to 3-10 after losing to the Bombers in kind of a weak effort overall from the squad. And then, of course, Chris McCaffrey doing his job tanking, getting hurt yet again, ripping his pants again.
Good job.
Yeah, so truly a tough go for the Armadillos this year. But the number 2 pick is a nice consolation prize, I guess, to otherwise is an awful season from all things considered. But then the Lambs, like we mentioned, holding the third spot. They will hold the third spot based on points and points alone. So this coming week, we have Lambs Muskrats, and a game that I'm sure the Lambs will be firing out every of their best players because it truly does not matter and has the chance to knock the Muskrats out of the playoffs potentially. Just an insane turn of events here with the Plague and Muskrats. So looking at the standings, we got the 6 and 7 spots still up for grabs right now. The 6th spot is still for grabs. The Muskrats have 1,590 points to the Plague's 1,588, but the Plague have that extra win. So if it comes down to the Plague losing, the Muskrats winning, it's going to be all about points, and it's going to be exciting. So I guess we can open it up here. I mean, last night was crazy. It was one of the craziest fantasy weeks I've ever seen. I truly I was on the shuttle watching the game and trying to follow along the chat at the same time from the airport, and just I turned it off for 2 seconds to get on the shuttle, and there was a Jameis pick 6, and I'm just like, what the hell just happened? Yeah, which one? It was the second one, I think, and I just was blown away. And then Alex hopped in the chat with the Eli Manning meme. And I'm like, oh my God, is this actually happening right now? And then came the flurry of fire sale. I don't even know what that was. It's just
I laughed for like a solid 5 minutes straight when this came through.
Well, boy, do I have something for you too. We have an exclusive music video that I spent way too much time creating today. I'm going to fire it up. Here we go. I spent way too much time on that shit. I spent so much time on
it. That is excellent.
I spent 3 hours on that shit. I hope it was worth it. I'll drop it in the chat for anybody that wants to rewatch it. It's a classic.
It might be the best piece of content we've ever put out from this week.
It's too good. The second he started to put in the fire sale shit in the all the trade block things, I was like, I got to do it. Now's the time. So we might not get the fire sale now because the deadline is passed, but we might get it in the off season, I guess. Oh my god, what a mess. Anywho, I don't know how we go back to the podcast. Oh shit. All right. So yes, we do have the Muskrats and the Plague. Truly, this is what everybody cares about for this week. So we should definitely spend some time there. So let's go to week 14.
Real quick, I do want to say something. When you're going through the standings, I really appreciate how much of a fan you are of the Bombers, that you just took on their yearly shitty luck and just put it on your team this year.
I mean, I feel like last year it was so bad. Like, I got so lucky last year that I knew it was going to turn around in some way, but I figured if I could take a little extra from the Bombers, maybe it would help to get them into the playoffs this year. So I'm proud of them. And they didn't really have like their best week. I mean, a lot of duds in their flex spots this week. I mean, ETN at 5.8, Deshaun Vele, or is it Deshaun? I don't even know. Devon Vele at 1.6, Jawan Jennings at 5.6, Kicker at 5. So it just wasn't a great week for him, but also had some bye week troubles, I think, as well. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting run for the Bombers, who right now, I believe, sit in the 4 seed at 1,718 points, and it looks like nobody's going to really catch him for that spot. So it looks like he's going to at least be the 4 seed, which is good for him to potentially play one of the Lionheads, Muskrats, or Plague. So, I mean, let me get your thoughts on. Let's start with Tibbs here on the Muskrats loss first, and then who do you think is going to get this 6th seed? Do you think it's going to be? I mean, I think we know next week. Let's look at the standings, or the not standings, the matchups. We have the Plague taking on the Lionheads in a tough matchup. However, I think the Lionheads have some bye week issues as well this week, with Jonathan Taylor being on bye, Terry McLaurin being on bye, Zay Flowers on bye. So it's not like the end of the world for the Plague here to be matched up against a good playoff team. But where do you go, Tibbs, here?
Well, a couple things. I mean, one, I'm heavily invested in whatever happens with Alex, and I'm certainly rooting against him given I've got his first round pick.
Yes, of course.
Last night was a great 3 hours of fun. I mean, watching the game was great. Behind the scenes, Dan and I were talking about trades. We were both in a position we were thinking about losing, and we've got a trade deadline like right up to the end of the game to discuss. So we were like talking about structuring possible trades if he doesn't win, and, you know, monitoring what happens in the game. And all of a sudden, like, Jerry Jeudy just like goes berserk, and
former Muskrat.
Yeah, and we're all like watching this game and not even believing what we're seeing, and it's great because Alex lost. And so yeah, I mean, I'm certainly expecting it's going to come down to a really close game because Dan's got to play Vince. Vince does have a couple of good players that are going to be on his bye, but it's one of those things where I'll be rooting against Alex. I'm not sure what Alex is going to do if he loses this year, because he's talking about fire sale, but he doesn't have any of his picks. So, you know, there's been discussions of why would he even entertain that. His team's been pretty good recently. I mean, he's putting up points. It's just one of those deals where he needs it at the right time. And with Dan, I know he's in a situation where he's kind of like in between, like, what, you know, does he compete? Does he sort of restructure his team for a light rebuild? You know, he's short at running back depth, and he's got aging players. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'll certainly be rooting against Alex, and I sure hope that I can clinch his 4th overall rookie pick just for the sake of my benefit. But I don't know. I mean, I know Alex is in a tough spot because he needs Dan to not only lose to Vince, which could happen, but he needs to win and he needs to get the points. So it's like you're asking for a whole lot.
It is asking for a lot. Sean, where do you think?
He does have the most points scored against him this year of any team. So
he does, yes.
We'll
He's played a tough schedule.
but yeah, recently, like if we're just looking at the last like month of the season, like I think it's pretty. I feel pretty confident saying his team is probably better than Dan's at this point. But that's why he played the whole year. So,
true.
But yeah, I agree. Like it's asking a lot. Like you got to win, he's got to lose, and you got to get the points. It's a lot. It's not possible, but I don't necessarily think it's worth fire sailing yet.
That's kind of where let's go to my next question. This fire sale, I mean, this topic is this started in San Diego, Tibbs, where I don't know how this even started. I think I just said, Alex, like, what'll happen if you lose a couple of games in a row here and you're at 5-7? And he just his first thought was fire sale. He said, I'm selling everybody and their kids. He's selling everyone. And I was like, why would you do that when you don't have your own first pick? And he said he just wanted picks. He just wants to pick people. He doesn't care. And I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. Tibbs, do you think he should fire sale if he loses this week? If it doesn't go his way this week, what should he do?
I mean, I'm looking at his picks. He doesn't have anything valuable picks for next year. So the purpose would be to, I mean, if he rebuilds, he's going to get younger, I guess. But he has, top end talent at some positions, which you would like to think that you want to hold on to those because, okay, if you trade Puka for, let's say 2 firsts, let's just, for example, I don't even know what his value is, but you're probably going
to argue the high end talent in multiple spots. I don't know about that. I think Puka's the only one that I would trade a first for on his team.
I don't know. I mean, I think Laporta could definitely fetch a first. I think
not now. Maybe last year. Maybe when he paid peak value for him.
I mean, he's still real young, and it's a dynasty.
Yeah, he'd be a fringe first for me.
But I mean, even if he trades these guys for, let's say, a good deal, he's not going to hit on all of these picks, so he's going to end up maybe adding a little bit more depth, but I don't see why he would bother with rebuilding until he has 2027 draft coming up, just because, I mean, you're in the middle of the muck, let's call it the muck like we've been calling it, and that's where your team's going to end up standing next year most likely. And at that point, you might as well just see if you can get fortunate in games and get on a hot run rather than blowing it up and waiting for maybe 2026 and 2027 where you can't compete at all. I just don't think it's worth wasting 2026 when you don't have your own first.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at just like the guys on his roster, like Sean said, you're probably not going to get a lot of peak value on anybody really at this point, other than maybe Nakua. And even then, like, I think it's more likely that we see, I know like Alex likes to talk a big game with the fire sale stuff, but I think we're much more likely to see a retool, if anything, maybe just move around assets for similar value assets just to kind of just shake things up. Maybe, like a guy like a DeAndre Swift or a Chuba or something like that, just to kind of move around and get some receivers and just, similar value type trades in the offseason. I can see that much more likely than just kind of selling off everybody. Because like you said, he just doesn't have any of his own picks, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to tank when you don't have your own pick. I mean, I understand getting a couple extra firsts, a second, whatever. And I'm clicking his roster, and I scroll to the bottom, and somehow he has Dustin 7th when I said that you can't trade 7th round picks. I don't know how that happened, but we'll have to get that sorted out. I didn't even notice that till right now.
They swapped 7ths in a trade this year.
When did that happen? Because that's not allowed. I don't think you're supposed to do that.
I'll find it. Hold on.
Oh my God. We're off the rails in this league for serious. Like, this is unreal. No, but like Alex's team, he's gotten pretty decent value out of most of the players on his roster at this point. Oh, here, Sean's like, all right, go ahead, Sean.
There was no other assets. It was literally.
It was just the 7th. How did I not notice? This must have flew under the radar next to a big move or something.
When was this? Hold on.
If he did in the offseason,
it was May 2nd.
That's right after when we said it wasn't allowed. Oh my God. All right. Well, we'll get that sorted out. So once again, 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks are not meant to be traded. Maybe we should just fucking start trading them. Who cares? Like, why not? Because make it so that Alex can get his. I would love it if Alex just ended up getting like a zillion 5, 6, and 7 somehow, and just rebuild his team through the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. That'd be great. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, anywho, that'll be a topic for the off season. We got a huge week coming up. So like we mentioned, we have the Lambs, and I guess let's just pick the games. So Lambs versus Muskrats. Who do you got? Let's start with Sean on this one.
Oh, Jesus. Let me at least look at their matchup.
And I got to tell you, James picked up an Isaac Garendo bump here. He's got Brian Thomas, CD Lamb. Like that. Don't like Kenny Gainwell.
He might get on the field. I don't know.
If they're blowing him out, yeah.
But I don't know. Carolina's frisky right now. Maybe not.
And then on the other side of things, the Muskrats are firing out. We got Stevenson on bye. That's a tough one.
I'm going to go. Oh, Puka against Buffalo is not a great matchup. Give me the Lambs. Fuck it.
Wow. The knockout punch, the Lambs, the 6 and 8 Lambs in this scenario. All right, Tibbs, what do you got?
I'll take Alex. I think probability Alex will end up winning that game, and it's just a matter of, if Dan can seal it on his own. Or I honestly think it's going to come down to points, because even though Vince does have a couple buys, I think he's got a stronger. I mean, he's got like Jonathan Taylor on the buy, and Zay Flowers and Terry, but just for the nature of fun, I think it's going to come down to points.
Sean, do you think that the Plague are going to take it down this week?
It's so hard to say yes when you look at the running backs that he has to play. Like, it's just so tough. It's Chubb at Pittsburgh too. Hunt's barely going to play. It's tough, man.
Now that I look at who Vince is starting, I mean, he's starting Algier, he's starting Wicks, he's starting Tucker. Those are like, they very well could be 5 points or less per player.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a muck fight in this one. I think I would say this is probably gonna be one of the lower scoring games of the week. But one team's got Josh Allen, and I believe in Josh Allen, so I'm gonna take Dan.
Wow. All right. So then that would put Dan into the playoffs. Man, it's going to be a fun finish to this season. I mean, everybody's going to be watching with bated breath on those two games. That's the biggest one. But there's also another pretty big matchup here, Sean, involving you and well, actually not you, but I'm trying to look seeding wise. Basically, the Battle Axes are at 1852. The Long Gamers are at 1906 in terms of points right now. And basically, it would require for Sean to lose the second seed, it would require a win for the Battle Axes and a sizable 50-point, actually 64-point difference in points to get up into that bye week. So, Sean, I assume you're feeling pretty good about getting this bye week, right?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. Lamar on a bye. We were talking about this before, but that means Henry's on a bye for him. So feels like a little bit of a wash. So I still feel like I can put up enough points where it's not going to matter in the end. So, and if I get the win, it just doesn't matter. And I'll take that.
Yeah, then it's complete moot point at that stage of the game. So, I mean, really, like from a seeding perspective, it doesn't look like there could be a whole lot of change. I mean, the Battle Axes could move up potentially, but if they don't, they're going to probably just stay at their spot unless the Bombers win. If the Bombers take a win and the Battle Axes lose, I think they're playing each other. That would put the Bombers into the 3 seed, which would be interesting. And I don't see a scenario where the Lionheads get into that 3 seed based on points. I think it would be. I guess it's possible. Well, it's not possible that because the Battle Axes and Bombers are playing each other, that they need both of them can't lose. So unless there's a tie, that would be kind of fun.
And frankly, I like it. I think it does matter. I think the 3 is not too bad of a place to be. And I know Dan just put up 159 points, but I think of the 4 teams or the 3 teams ahead of him, if he were to make the 6th seed, I feel like that's the matchup you would want in the first round. Just
that was
based
kind of my
on
next question. Is like, who
overall.
do you want to face? I mean, you guys are the top 2 as it stands right now. You know, who do you want to face? I mean, I would assume you'd want, you know, the 6th seed clearly, but let's keep it more focused on 3, 4, 5. Like, which is the team that you would like to see and the one you really don't want to see? I'll start with Tibbs on this one. Actually, he just lagged out, so we're gonna go over to Sean first.
I think I mean, when you've got those top 2 dogs at running back, that Scavelli does, I think you would prefer to avoid that if you can. I think that's definitely the one that you're like, and I'm pretty sure he's got like pretty good choices at quarterback right now too. Like Baker's been great this year.
Daniels.
So I think that's probably the team you would prefer to avoid. I'm not trying to avoid anybody. I don't really care. Like I mean, my team put up points against anybody, so I'm not worried about that. I would say that's the team definitely to avoid. But I mean, of the other 2, I think they're both good teams. Like I don't think anybody's like a guaranteed win out of them.
No, I don't. And I think just looking at Justin's team, I have Justin as, I mean, of course I'm a giant Bombers fan, but I look at Justin's team and I'm seeing the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack, and that is a very scary stack to face any week. But you know, for those giant weeks, like his 46, his 32, his 24, those are the weeks that I get really scared about. You know, as if I was a top team, I'd be concerned about that. So even, you know, Vince's great running backs, Justin's stack, the Toronto Battle Axe's excellent running backs and quarterback situation. All 3 of them are going to be tough. Tibbs, what do you think?
I mean, it's close. You can make a case because each of them have strengths of their own, you know, respective positions. I probably want to avoid Scavelli just because of the running backs. Like if they each put up, you know, a 25-point, 35-point game, which is within the realm of reason, then that's tough to compete with. I know his receivers have been a little shallow, but he's got Evans back, and Evans is back to, you know, being himself, and he's got Kittle, which, you know, tight end 1 probably, tight end 2. I think I want to avoid Scavelli of the choice, but you know, Justin has Mixon and Kenneth Walker, and he's got the Burrow stack to chase, so that can be scary. I think I would rank it maybe most afraid of playing Scavelli. Then I don't know. You split it down the middle between the Bombers and the Lionheads. They're both fairly close, but I mean, there's a 100-point difference through the season, so I guess you could say Bombers have been a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the bracket right now, as it currently stands, it would be the Long Gamers in the 2 slot, and they would face the 3 seed or the 6 seed, which would be Scavelli or Dan as it stands right now, with the top side of the bracket being the 4 and 5, which are the Lionheads and the Bombers. So just either way, nobody's going to, I mean, even if Dan gets in too, or Alex, like those teams also have a chance to get hot too, which is always scary. You know, those feisty 6 seeds in our league seem to find a way sometimes. So it's going to be a hell of a finish here. And I think really, like from a league perspective, I don't think there's a whole lot more to talk about as far as the standings go. So, you know, obviously we're going to have quite a bit of talk in the offseason about the draft, rookie draft specifically. But looking at the Elk, they're going to be in prime position for Ashton and GT, it seems like. So I can't imagine a situation as it stands right now where the Elk go away from GT just based on, you know, overall value. And it's just he's in that Bijan level of category of running backs. So I can't imagine he goes away from that unless he does kind of what I did where he trades stuff away for more picks, but he's already got a zillion picks. So it's kind of like I don't think he needs to do that.
If Travis Hunter declares he's only going to be a wide receiver in the NFL,
I mean, even then, like I don't think it changes things for me. I mean, to me, he's the first guy off the board. Honestly, I think there's a chance where Hunter is an only wide receiver, and I still wouldn't even take him at 2, just depending on what other options are out there. Because I think it's going to be an interesting draft this year in the middle of the first, where I think a lot of it's going to be like there's not just like that guy. Like last year, we had the obvious top 3, borderline 4 if you considered Bowers in there. Whereas this year, I just don't think there's going to be that consensus anytime between now and the combine. I think it's just going to be all over the place between 2 and like 7. And I think there'll be a lot of running backs. It's just going to depend on landing spot mostly like every year. But it should be an interesting first, at least 3 picks. I'm expecting some fireworks this year because I think there's going to be a lot of people that have different people ranked in different slots. So looking forward to that for sure. I was going to kind of go into the player page here. We haven't done a podcast in a little while. So I was going to kind of go over the leaders and just kind of like, now that we're towards the end of the season, to look at the, just the overall leaders for the season and kind of just get our reactions on, how things have shaken out, I should say. And just what your overall thoughts on specific positions. So we'll start at the quarterback position. It feels like the top 3, 4 guys are pretty obvious, even 5, I guess, which is kind of surprising with, actually, I'm looking at this now. And I think this is all jacked up because this is projected fantasy points. So we got to go to regular. All right. So the first quarterback is Lamar Jackson. I don't think that's much of a surprise to anybody. Joe Burrow has had a 6 season. Is this the biggest wasted season of all time as far as like not helping your quarterback at all as a defense?
It's got to be up there. Like they've scored over 30 points like 5 times, and they're like 1-4 in those games this year. It was something like that. I'm probably not exactly right there, but it's somewhere in that range.
I mean, he's got 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,337 yards. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind.
They just need to lock down both receivers and literally just spend all their draft capital on defense this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have really any major needs on the offside of the ball. Maybe a lineman to help out Burrow a little bit more, but like I feel like they could find that elsewhere other than the draft. But yeah, I mean, they need to spend a lot of money on defense because they just don't have the talent, and they've actually let a lot of talent go over the last 3-4 seasons with Jesse Bates, a couple of defensive linemen they lost. So I think
those were all free agents when they signed them originally too. Like they haven't been able to draft defensive talent at all.
It's been years, honestly. I think it was like the last one I can remember that was good was like Geno Atkins. Yep. Like that was like a legitimate superstar. They got a long way to go on defense, but man, they got to do something because it just hurts me to see Burrow in his prime at age 27 throwing 30 touchdowns and 5 picks, and then literally just means nothing. I mean, it's just like it's a joke. Let's go down further in the list here. Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels at 3 and 4 on this stats sheet here. Scavelli has both of them, and before the season, we thought he had no quarterbacks, and he ends up with the 3 and 4 quarterback. Classic Scavelli. What else changes? Tibbs, I kind of want to talk to you quickly about Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's had a little bit of an interesting season. Obviously, he started really hot, with a 28-point performance, 32, 26. But then towards the middle of the season, really kind of started sputtering a little bit with some 8s, 5s, 23, 15. And then he's picked it up over the last couple of weeks against really bad defenses in Dallas and Tennessee. So maybe long-term, like, where does Jaden Daniels fall in your quarterback rankings overall as a dynasty player? Because I feel like he's kind of tough to project right now because we've seen some really good stuff and then we've seen some not so good stuff too. And his health is always a concern. So where would you throw him?
I mean, dynasty, he's got to be top 4, I would think. I mean, I'd have to compare how, rookie seasons are to Lamar, and those are, single season samples, but this very well could be a replica of owning a Lamar and having a Lamar at 23 when, Lamar's special, but, Jaden Daniels is performing at a very high level for fantasy purposes. So Scavelli nailed that pick. And what did he go in? 2.04?
Yeah, 2.4.
Terrific pick. I mean, I know we all knew it was a need of his, but terrific pick. I would say he's probably got to be in the top 4. I mean, looking at the list, I would say Lamar is still probably
and really not that much around him yet either. Like outside of Terry, like the offensive line has played way above what their projection was coming into the year, and I think that is maybe like they might come back down to earth a little bit, but I think it's good enough going forward where maybe they can really start looking at some like weapons in free agency and the draft and stuff and really give him more support on offense. And I think that's only going to help him. So I think top 4 is definitely, he's definitely there.
I mean, on the other side of the spectrum, I think you could look at, a guy like CJ Stroud, who was probably at that 4 or 5 slot for a lot of people heading into this year. That is completely flip-flopped, and Jaden has kind of basically taken that spot. But like, where does Stroud land now? Like he has been very.
Depends on who his new offensive coordinator is going to be next year.
So you believe in the Slowick leaving situation?
I think he's terrible.
I mean, it's funny because like last year everybody was like, "Oh, this is the guy we got to have as like our head coach," and then it turned into a really. I mean, this has been a bad offensive season. Other than Joe Mixon, this has been terrible. I mean, of course, like Nico has been getting his points, but Stroud has not looked that good this year. I'm a little concerned. But you know who I'm not concerned about right now?
Nico for a good chunk of the year in the middle. That definitely doesn't help. But
it really does.
And the offensive line is awful.
They are very bad. They are very, very bad. But I just don't know. Like it was basically the same line last year. It's not really that different. So that's kind of where I'm confused.
What's even funnier is like it was technically worse last year, just based off of like all the injuries they had. It's healthy this year and it's worse. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused by that whole like Houston situation. They're just not a good team.
That's why it makes me think it's like a scheme is as much a problem as anything there right now.
Something's broken in that offense, and maybe it's Slowick's fault, maybe it's not, but there's definitely some concern there for CJ Stroud. Whereas, looking at Dustin's team kind of as a whole, with him and Trevor Lawrence being the premium guys that he has for the future, both of them really are not in good spots as it stands right now.
Trevor Lawrence doesn't even know where he is right now.
Yeah, Trevor, he got smoked, dude. that poor guy got crushed. I couldn't even watch it again. I was like, dude, this is bad. Like that was such a bad hit. And then this whole Texans like, oh, he didn't do anything wrong. It's like, that's debatable.
Same guy that was swinging at somebody on the sideline last year.
Yeah, guy's a douche. I don't know. He seems like a real weenie. But Sean, talk to me about Bo Nix. Bo Nix is QB7.
First of all, I think Russell Wilson was like a top 10 or 12 quarterback last year for Sean Payton. So as much as the Bucs fans in our league hate Sean Payton, the guy is really good. He's just really good.
Like, I mean, he gets the most out of quarterbacks, that's for sure.
I mean, Bo Nix has got like an astronaut. Well, maybe not after last night's game, but just a super low ADOT. Like he's not doing anything crazy on the field. He's just running the offense that's put in front of him. He's doing a pretty good job with it. But he's been really good the last few weeks. That game last night was insane. That Marvin Mims throw was
a dime.
That thing was just like sex. It was so good.
Yeah, that was an absolute dime. 90 was it like a 90-something yard touchdown? Like that's crazy.
92.
That's unreal. Yeah, he has beat up on some pretty bad defenses as of late. Mm-hmm. But even in the game, put up 24 against the Chargers. That's a great defense. Kansas City put up 20. So it's not like he's not like doing nothing against those teams.
I don't think a lot of us really expected like a running floor with Bo Nix in fantasy. I think that's actually been very helpful for him. Not as much lately because he's been able to drive the ball more against the bad teams, but like when he's under pressure and stuff, he's going to be able to get out and move. And I think that's always helpful in fantasy, whether it's our 6-point touchdown pass league or not.
Right.
So that's really helpful.
I will say, in talking about one other guy on this list that I'm looking at, he did miss a couple of games early in the year, but man, Jordan Love has really not been all that good recently in fantasy. It's been just fine for the Packers, but not a whole lot of production over the last 7 weeks or so. I mean, we're talking 22, 5, 10, 22, 18, 22. So it's not like bad, but he's QB 16 on the year. Obviously, mixed the 2 weeks, so that kind of factors in. But are you feeling the same way about Jordan Love now in fantasy as you were at the beginning of the season, where everybody was kind of talking top 10? Or is he going to kind of settle into this kind of mid QB2 situation?
I think I would still treat him as like a fringe top 10 quarterback. I think the beginning of the year and the injury and the lingering of the injury is definitely an effect. And I think he's in a great ecosystem where he's going to be able to thrive offensively. I mean, this team was significantly skewed to passing touchdowns last year, and that variance always bounces back a little bit, especially with Josh Jacobs the last few weeks. Definitely skewing back towards that way, a more even split. But I mean, he's one of the few quarterbacks in the league where if he threw for 40 touchdowns, it wouldn't surprise me in a year. So
yeah, I mean, he's got the weapons at his disposal, that's for sure. I mean, like he's definitely got guys to throw to. The offense is great. He's got a great coach. I mean, I'm not really worried about him, but I do think he will end up settling into that like QB 12 area, like you said, like that fringe one, and that's fine.
When you can package them together with Burrow and Tua, like that's
right.
such a great three-headed quarterback for a team. Like Justin's in such a good spot. Like that's a perfect trio.
I mean, Justin's team in general just has such a great balance of quality vets and the younger guys as well. I'm really impressed with the team. It's finally coming together this season, it seems like. So we'll do one more quarterback here, and we'll bring this over to Tibbs because he's got him. It's Anthony Richardson. Obviously, really, really strange season. Well, probably the strangest season I can remember for a quarterback that had as much hype as he did heading into the season. I mean, like redraft leagues, there was talk of him, 5, number 6, number 7 overall at the quarterback position. And obviously he didn't hit that this year at all. But like, how do you feel about Anthony Richardson right now? As is like, how are we like heading into the playoffs? How do you feel about him? And then for next year, how are you feeling?
I mean, I see him as like a true lotto ticket. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to get when I start. Like, I might get like 10 points. I might get like 30 points. And based on my quarterback situation now, it's turning into like, Jameis is startable and Russ is serviceable. But with Richardson, I need to see more in the passing game. The rushing floor was appetizing as far as drafting him and knowing that that's going to exist. And they run the ball with him a lot, which is encouraging to see. But I just need like just some consistently, like throw for like 220 yards and like a touchdown and a half a game and just keep your rushing floor. And like then he'll put up like 18 points a week, which is fine. And then maybe he'll have some blow up games. But I'd say he's been disappointing so far for sure.
Top 10 quarterback 2 of the last 3 weeks. I will give him that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
he's played 9 games this year. He's had 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. It's just not very good numbers.
You got to treat him as a rookie. Like
which is tough.
He's played so little football.
And I will say this too, in his defense, like he basically didn't have an off season because he had a shoulder injury. So like he wasn't throwing to anybody really until training camp. So it's not even like he got to like work with anybody for chemistry in the off season. Like he was kind of just doing mental reps. It's not really ideal.
That weird ass like benching / whatever happened like in the middle of the year too. Like that doesn't help. Like, and I don't think it was really for performance. I think it was for him taking himself out of the game.
I think so too.
I think whether it's their crazy ass owner making that decision, I don't think Steichen would have done that, but
I don't know. I just feel like it was like one of those things where like everybody was so fired up at the time that something had to happen, and they kind of just let it run its course. And they knew that Flacco wasn't going to be able to hold up like that, over the last 4 or 5 weeks. I think they just kind of had to let it happen.
Yeah, it just never made like. I get it that that might have disturbed the fan base and got a lot of pushback in the media, but you guys drafted this guy 4 overall, and you need to see it through. Like, this is the reason why you drafted the guy. What are you going to get in Flacco? You're going to get maybe a hot run like you did for Cleveland, and then you had, you made the playoffs, and then you got kicked out because you're not a good enough team to make a run, and then now you lost a season of developing and seeing what you have in your first pick. I just didn't agree with it, but at the time, Richardson wasn't playing great either, so.
Yeah, it just seems like he needed like a hard reset, and that was kind of like a good way to do it. But
and if you're treating him like a rookie, we all remember how like the rookie started this year. It was like week 3 when one of the rookie quarterbacks finally threw a touchdown pass. Does that sound right? It was like there wasn't any the first 2 weeks.
Doesn't sound wrong. Maybe like Daniels, maybe.
So like he played Houston, Green Bay, Chicago, and Pittsburgh. All 4 of those defenses were very good to start the year. Like
not ideal.
If we're treating him as a rookie, then like I don't know. I have a lot more grace for him. I think top 5 quarterback is still very much in the realm of possibility for him.
I mean, yeah, if he can get back on track at all with his passing and keep that rushing floor like Tibbs mentioned, I feel like there's a shot. All right, so let's go over to the running backs. We'll do a couple of running backs. We've talked at length about Barkley and Henry pretty much all year. So let's go to a guy that I think is just truly impressive when you factor in the fact that he missed 3 games, weeks 3, 4, and 5, and he's still RB3, is Joe Mixon. This guy has been electric this year. I mean, he's playing the best football of his career. At age 28, he's got 887 yards and 11 touchdowns, has an extra one in the receiving game. I mean, he's been a stud. If you're looking at it from Justin's perspective, that trade he made, which entailed Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, and a second and 25 for Brian Thomas, Devontae Walker, who I don't think has played a snap this season.
Stinks.
He does stink. A 2025 first and a fourth. Has that trade worked out? I would venture to say obviously ETN is the really, really, really tough one in that scenario. I still don't know how if you told me right now, like, how would you value ETN in a trade? I really don't even have anything for you. I got nothing. I just you just got to hold.
Yeah, I would say the trade has not worked out because ETN has lost so much value, and you can't reliably start him because he's not producing himself, and then Tank Bigsby is there when he gets the touches he produces. So even though Mixon has had a terrific year, the fact that ETN was a huge piece to the puzzle and he's disappointed, I would say that trade didn't work out, particularly because Brian Thomas looks like a top 6 dynasty receiver at the moment. It's just one season, but knowing what we've seen as well, I think that makes the trade favorable for James.
Sean, what do you think?
I think it's a slight win, but that's like, for me, I wouldn't have viewed either of those running backs as like a top 10 running back this year, probably coming in, maybe top 8. But like, I don't know. I mean, like, you're getting that much production from one of the players in a trade. I think like he's a guy that's been winning weeks for you. I think that makes the trade worth it. Like, we're in it to win games. So,
yeah, I mean, if Mixon is kind of the catalyst that he needed. I mean, he had no running backs going into the offseason. Like, something had to get done, and everybody knew it. So the fact that maybe he had to overpay a little bit to get to that running back, I do think it's worked out, at least for now. And he was very flush with receiver talent as well. So the Brian Thomas, letting go of him hurts a little bit less when you're starting 3 receivers or Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison, Jaden Reed. I don't think it hurts as bad. But I do agree that like ETN is taking a huge dump though. And
I just don't understand how is Houston the worst team in the NFL on first down, and they have Joe Mixon putting up these numbers? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It tells me that they're an awful third down team. That's what it tells me. Because like if he's getting 4.33 yards per carry, it's not like, if you're getting 4 or 5 yards a clip, then it should leave you in at least, 3rd 4s, 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s. Like, it's not awful. You're not in 3rd and 12s. You're not in 3rd and 13s. Like, why isn't this team moving the ball? Like, it doesn't make sense. I agree. Like, I haven't watched a whole lot of Houston Texans football this year, I'll be honest with you. So, like, I truly don't know anything other than the highlights I see, other than just, like, Joe Mixon rips off, like, a big one every game. It seems like at least, like, a 30-yarder a game. But, like, whenever I see the Texans on red zone, it's usually, like, Stroud getting sacked or, like, throwing a weird pass and 4 and outs and stuff like that. It just doesn't make sense that they're not putting up a lot of points. I've seen a lot of Kaimi Fairbairn, too, this year on red zone. which is not a good sign either for the
a lot of
prospects
50-yard field goals from
long field goals too. Exactly. So very strange. All right, let's go to another running back on the list here. Let's find somebody interesting. Any on the list that you guys are interested in talking about? I feel like a lot of these have been pretty standard. I guess we could talk about Chuba Hubbard because this is an Alex Morales sponsored podcast. So, Chuba has been excellent for pretty much the entire year. Jonathan Brooks comes back this week, eats into a snap count just a little bit. But do you see this affecting Alex's chances in the playoffs? This Jonathan Bryant. Let's say Alex gets in. Is this a concern for Chuba Hubbard, or is it kind of a 60-40 situation, 70-30 situation? What do you think?
Any receiving work is probably going to get eaten into because Brooks, it's kind of like not necessarily his calling card, but it's definitely a strength of his game coming to the NFL. So that's definitely, and I think he had a couple receptions in this game, the Bucs game too.
He had one really good one. I think it was his first touch of his career. Actually, it was like a little swing screen pass, and he shook like 4 people. So it's pretty cool.
He could work into like the 2-4 minute offense, so that could be opportunities away from Chuba. But outside of that, I mean, he's still going to get goal line carries. They're moving. The offense actually looks much better the last few weeks too, so that's helpful for him as well. But yeah, I mean, he's been great. The offensive line's been really good this year. He's been running well behind it. Great.
Yeah, they've really flipped that line around from last year. They were horrible last year, like unwatchable offensive line play. But the Robert Hunt signing seemed to have worked out, and they've added a couple other pieces. One name that we need to talk about and maybe bid farewell for the season, again, unfortunately, is J.K. Dobbins. Just another tough blow for the Dan Schwartz Philadelphia Plague. I mean, was J.K. Dobbins the most obvious sell high in the history of sell highs?
I mean, I think we all sort of in the back of our mind expected him to get hurt just on the nature of history.
It's always a devastating injury. It's always a bad one. It's never just like a little hamstring strain or something like that. It's always like a blown out knee or an ankle and Achilles, whatever. It's sad.
I can make an argument for a couple other players for sell high, but I mean, he's definitely up there.
Give me the other ones then.
Garrett Wilson.
Ooh, that's a fun one. I mean, he had that little run. I think we talked about this on the podcast where in Galactic League, I received a trade offer. I have Jaden Reed. I was offered Garrett Wilson and I declined. And then the next week, Garrett Wilson went off for like 30 and then had another like huge week. And I looked stupid. And then now I kind of feel like I'm back okay again. I'm like, all right, I'm glad I didn't make the trade again. Would you still? Who would you take in that head-to-head right now?
I like Reed, but
trade.
I'm biased though because I really like Reed. I liked him coming in.
I think Wilson is the better player.
I do too, but situation
hurts.
Pretty important.
What the hell happens to the Jets? Like, is Aaron Rodgers the quarterback next year?
No,
I don't know. I feel like he can't be.
I don't. They're going to overdraft a quarterback this offseason. That's what it feels like.
Are they going to be the team that does the Bo Nix special where it's like, oh, this guy we thought was going to go way later and he ends up going like 14 overall?
Maybe.
I could see them being that team.
Who's like a ideal like car crash waiting to happen in New York? Is it Carson Beck or like?
I don't like Carson Beck even a little bit.
Milrow, I don't know. I think Shador is like stamped to the Raiders. I don't think he's going anywhere else but the Raiders. So
I don't think Milrow's getting out of the first round at all. I don't think there's any way he ends up as like he's just got too many tools, and the NFL just absolutely loves tools.
They do.
So like I don't see. I think he's going to be a top 15 pick, and I don't like it, but I think that's going to happen.
I don't see any first round quarterbacks from my eyes watching college football this year. But
I mean, Shador has legitimate skills.
Yeah,
there's the whole sideshow.
I don't think he's got a very high ceiling in the NFL. I think he's going to be a game manager. Like he's really not that far off of a prospect from Bryce Young, but I didn't like Bryce Young, but he went first overall. So
I mean, teams do love those game manager-y kind of quarterbacks too.
Yeah, he's not as athletic as you would think. His arm talent isn't as good as you would think it is. I don't know. But he's also been running for his life behind a terrible offensive line in Colorado for 2 years. So
yeah, they're awful.
It's tough to see 100% of what he's going to be, but I don't know. I think it's definitely a lot of buzz that kind of brings the name up. And if you say anything bad about Shador, you're like, roasted on the internet.
I agree. I honestly think the best passer in this draft is Cam Ward, and he kind of gets like the least amount of buzz.
I think he definitely needs to not be a starter right away in the NFL, though. But I think he has the most potential of the first round quarterbacks.
He's just a guy like can stand in the pocket. He plays from under center. He does the things like you want to see, and he's got a good arm. And I think like you could teach a guy like that. Whereas I look at a guy like Carson Beck or Drew Aller, who's another kind of like high thought of guy from Penn State. Like both of those guys, they have a lot of work to do, and I don't want to be the team that has to figure out how to make that work. Whereas that's why I think Milroe is going to end up going very high, because I think teams are going to look at him and his experience in college. He's played a lot of games. He runs the ball great, so you can at least build around that for the first few years of his career. Like I could see a Jets Milroe situation very easily.
To give a comparison, like I don't think there's any guys in this draft that I would have taken ahead of McCarthy or Nix. I think they're there. They're in that realm. Like if I'm thinking going into the draft, but I don't see anybody above that.
No, I do think they're like those. To me, McCarthy and Nix were always like fringe firsts for me in terms of like overall like skill level. And I think that's kind of where all these other guys land too. I mean, I still think Shador is probably like a top 20 player, but just because he can just distribute the ball and teams will like that. But
and you get Dion when he comes to the NFL, so that's
the thing is I don't want Dion.
He's going to be the head coach of the Raiders next year,
dude. If he ends up being the coach of the Raiders, that's going to
they've got a connection to Tom Brady. Like
it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I think Jason Witten's going to be the coach of the Cowboys next year. What do you think about that? I really believe that's going to happen. My gut is telling me Jason Wood is going to be the Cowboys head coach.
Has there been like any like news about that or
no? It's just a complete gut.
Oh, okay.
Because as far as I know, there's been no discussion on this because he's the head coach at Argyle, which is like this like prestigious high school out here, and like I have a feeling like Jerry is just gonna he's gonna miss out on a lot of the head coaches that probably won't want to play for him. And who's the only guy that's going to be willing to put up with his crap is somebody that already knows him.
Jason Garrett, round 2.
It basically feels like that. It feels like that exactly.
That would be, he does like a bit of prestige with his hires though, like some kind of background or a long-time assistant though. So that would seem a little out of left field, but
I just think Jerry's desperate for something that sells tickets, and that might be it.
A retired tight end though, I don't know.
But a beloved tight end in the community. Everybody loves Jason Witten. Everybody loves Jason Witten. There's literally, if you do the Dallas Cowboys front office tour where they have their facility, there's this picture that's above the Ford Field, which is their practice field entrance, and it's that iconic shot of Jason Witten with no helmet barreling it down the field. And that's their pride and joy is Jason Witten. Yeah. They love him.
Fuck that. That was against the Eagles. I remember that game.
They love him. All right, let's talk about one receiver and one tight end. If you have any suggestions, hit me up.
One tight end.
Why is it sort of projection?
The one that I would bring up would be Jerry Jeudy being the 11th overall receiver. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
I mean, obviously this
last 3 weeks.
Literally half his points have come in 2 weeks. It's unbelievable.
If we're going to talk about receivers, can we just talk about them in general and like how disappointing of a general season it's been for receivers?
Yeah, I mean, like at least for a lot of the top guys. I mean, if you look at like just points,
I've got the wide receiver 6 on the year. Do you guys want to take a guess on who it is on my team?
Kind of sounds like a Monroe.
No, he's wide receiver 3.
He's 3 now?
Yeah.
He did have a couple stretch of good weeks there.
Yeah.
A lot of touchdowns.
Portland Sutton.
That is a receiver for sure. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like last year he did all of his damage on touchdowns, and this year it's almost the opposite. It's been all yardage.
Yeah. He's got 5 touchdowns. It's modest.
It's respectable.
He's no Westbrook Akine, but
oh my god, touchdown 7 straight weeks or something like some unbelievable.
8 in 8 weeks.
Oh my god, I've started him every week in redraft just because
He's third in the NFL in touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean like
he's he's fourth, but there's a tie for second between, you guessed it, Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Classic touchdown scores.
I'll be honest with you. I feel like I've seen Lad McConkey do borderline nothing for most of this season, and he's wide receiver 15.
He's just getting a lot of yards.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting high. He's definitely last 3 weeks. He's been a lot more consistent, but like early on in the season, he did nothing, and he's still wide receiver 15. It's like just a
Brian
weird.
Thomas as wide receiver 7. Like what?
And that's another guy I feel has done borderline nothing sometimes. Like he's either all or nothing.
Like 2 blow up games, and you're like a top 12 receiver this year.
It is unreal. I mean, like we'll look at Drake London. Like he's been very consistent throughout the year, and he's 9, which is kind of pretty much what we were talking about early on in the offseason. At least you were, Sean. But then you'd start looking at other guys down the list, like like George Pickens. I feel like has played great ball this year, and he's wide receiver 20. So it's very strange this year. I don't know.
I mean, look at
below that. Alec Pierce is above Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, like that shouldn't be. And that's because Alec Pierce had a 19-point, a 20-point, and an 11-point, and the rest of his weeks have been fucking garbage. So I don't understand.
Do we need to switch to half PPR?
I don't. There's certainly an argument being made here. I mean, Juwan Jennings is wide receiver 26 because he had 1 good week.
The JSN stock has been great for you, Tibbs. It is skyrocketing at the moment. I made multiple offers to you like within like the last year for JSN. I know specifically.
Yeah, it's been a huge. I'm thankful for it because I didn't know what he was going to be. I mean, you got to sit and wait, especially given what I thought he was going to be. But now it's turning into top 15, top 10 sort of territory.
I mean, he's wide receiver 12. He didn't do anything first half of the year.
Nico Collins is wide receiver 13. He missed 5 games.
That's just crazy. That's actually crazy. I love me some Nico.
Insane.
All right, tight end has also been a borderline wasteland.
I mean, there's only one guy to talk about.
I mean, I don't even want to spend that much time about him because
go ahead, Eric. Talk about your guy.
All right, Brock Bowers is sick. He's a sick.
So good.
He's sick. I hate to say it, but I think he might be the next Kelsey. Like he's just special. Like he is a special mover. He looks different with the ball in his hands. He kind of runs the same too. He's got that low center of gravity. He's just a very unique player, and he's been a great blocker too, which is unbelievable. Like he's doing everything. He never comes off the field. He's getting 90% snap counts every single week, and he's doing it all with freaking Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Like if they give him a real accurate quarterback, like I think he's going to be a superstar, man. I'm really, really hyped to have him on my team. And I feel really good about that pick, and I'm happy to lock down that slot for a long time. But I think just looking down the list, I mean, Kittle is his only real competition this year at tight end 2. But I mean, we're talking about Trey McBride, who's tight end 4, hasn't scored a touchdown all year.
2. He has a rushing and a fumble.
Okay.
But no receiving touchdowns,
which for a tight end is unbelievable.
It's insane. Yeah. I will throw this out there. I know you guys you probably know this, but like Mark Andrews, like the first few weeks of the year, just like the panic meter on Mark Andrews.
Oh, it was unreal.
Tibbs probably knows it very well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully Pittman didn't do much to compensate to make the trade look bad, but I was very concerned. It's like, what happened to this guy? He's been so consistent. Thankfully, he's finally coming around. So that one catch that he had for a touchdown this week was pretty impressive. Where he had
nice. His and the likely touchdown at the end too was really nice.
And I don't know if you guys have this same thought, but whenever I see Mark Andrews, I feel like he's 34 years old. And I don't know why. I just feel like he's been around for so long. And he's only 29. Yeah, he's not even that old. This is like, I just feel like he's just this like, he's just been around for long. He's like, oh, this old stalwart. He's going to fall off eventually. It's like, no, he's got like at least 3 more good years in him. So I don't know why they feel like that. But hey, what about Janu Smith, tight end 5? Just he did nothing early in the season and has had like 3 weeks of great football, and then now he's 10-5.
Crazy man. Listen,
it's a bad year.
Is the original Johnny Smith believer after last season's off podcast.
I mean, you are the head of the fan club.
I love to see it, man. I love that guy. He was good in
always
Tennessee,
been good.
And he just got real unlucky in New England and just tanked his stock.
I remember when they drafted him and they already had Delaney Walker on the team at Tennessee, and I was like, this guy's got something. There's something here, but it just never really seemed to totally work out anywhere he went.
Yeah, and pour one out for tight end 7 Taysom Hill on the year.
Yep, that might be it for him, Sean. He's 34. I didn't realize he was 34 until today.
He's old, man. Been around a while.
That's pretty crazy. What about tight end 11 Sam Laporta, tight end 9 Travis Kelce, and then tight end 10 Cade Otton? Because it looked like for a minute Cade Otton was going to be a superstar, and then we're back to this again. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, when he's not the first option, he's not an elite fantasy player.
I thought he would get some bump with Chris Godwin being out. Like maybe there'd be something there, but
yeah, I mean he got a little unlucky this week against Carolina. He probably should have had a touchdown in that game. But
all right, we're gonna close out the show. We're at an hour with our favorite topic of discussion: Kyle Pitts.
Oh God,
what is wrong? What is the problem here, Sean?
Here's the problem, Happy. You're
0
not very
catches
good.
I've come to the conclusion that he is the prototype, like not prototype, but the definition of a tweener. He doesn't do anything that he should be doing at a high level. Like he's somewhere in between. Like if he's an outside receiver, he's not fast enough to get off of press. If he is in the tight end position, he's not strong enough to get off any sort of press, and he's just not that special. Like it's I don't know what happened, because at Florida he looked like a superstar, and it just has not translated one bit. He just doesn't look the same.
Tibbs, you'll appreciate this comparison. Back in probably 15 years ago in the NBA, where you had these 6'4" guards that you weren't sure if they were a point guard or a shooting guard, and they kind of got left behind in the NBA because there wasn't a position for them. But nowadays there's no positions in the NBA, so everybody's just chucking threes. Pitts is just 10 years early. The tweener now is 10 years from now is the prototype tight end, because everybody's smaller.
The thing that's always bothered me with Pitts is okay, even if he sucks at getting off of press, and even if he's just not that good at running routes or getting open or whatever it is, at the very least, he should you're in the red zone. He's 6'6", 250, and he's got ball skills. How is he not catching? Geez, what a throwback name this is. I don't know how this popped into my head. You remember Joe Fourier from freaking Detroit? He was a tight end for Detroit for 4 games, and he was 6'9", 250, and all he did was catch just jump ball touchdowns and do nothing else of any value. And he never made it more than a year. But at the very least, how is this guy not just getting a red zone target a game? It just doesn't. It doesn't make something is so wrong with Kyle Pitts behind the scenes, or something that's just not. It's not going to work out in Atlanta. I've given up.
Should he just get stockier and just try
just
and
be a tight end?
Yeah, and just be a tight end,
because he's not a tight end right now. He's flexed out 70% of the time.
You don't need the athleticism he has to be a great tight end. Kelce is not a great athlete. He was a good athlete, but he was
fine. Yeah.
I wouldn't say Brock Bowers is an elite athlete. He's a good athlete, but he's just very.
I would call Brock Bowers an elite athlete, personally.
Would you? Okay, that's fair.
He's sick. He's nuts. Okay. I wish he ran the combine.
If you know where to be, which might be a problem for him. I don't know Kyle Pitts is on field, his how he works on the field. I don't think it's great, but how can he just not get stockier, a little heavier, a little less athletic, and just be Antonio Gates, where he's running that role?
I don't think he's athletic as him. I think the problem is, if you add more to him, he's gonna. First of all, he's 6'6", 250 listed. There's no way he's 250. He does not look 250.
No.
So if he actually got to 250, then I think he loses the athleticism that made him this elite prospect. And he's not a blocker. Everybody knows he's not a blocker. So I just don't know Like right now, he's kind of in this weird like Devin Funchess area, like where it's like you're just this big guy who can't separate, and he kind of even looks like Devin Funchess, which is kind of weird. But I just don't know where he goes.
Who is the wide receiver that Hakeem Butler?
He's in that mold. It's like this is the problem. He is an armadillo through and through. Like this is the guy we love. We love 6'6" receivers that can't separate. It's one of our favorite things to draft. We've done it for years. We finally learned our lesson a little bit. But man, like if he came available, I think I'd pick him up because he fits the mold. Like it's just one of those guys.
He's still so young.
Yeah, and he's 24, which is crazy. Like he's been in the league. This is his 4th season. So this will be an interesting offseason for him because he'll be in his 5th-year option.
He's 2 years younger than Devon Vele.
That is actually insane. He was younger than Velus Jones last year when he got drafted.
He's younger than Bo Nix.
Yes, he is younger for sure. So do the Falcons pick up his option?
They probably will, but
because it's going to be expensive. He was a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
I don't.
Maybe they don't. I don't know. Kirk Cousins is going to be on that team next year either, so who knows?
Now Pitts could also be a guy that just a change of scenery like really, really does something for him. But like I said, I just don't know where he fits.
What if like Sean Payton tries to turn him into like Jimmy Graham?
That's what people should be doing with him, is using him in the red zone. He never gets red zone targets.
Throw him in like the backfield. Like what if like Sean McVay gets him in LA?
Like that would be great. Just get a guy that like, because I've always thought like Arthur Smith, he just didn't do anything with them, and frankly Zach Robinson hasn't really even. I mean, he had a couple like weeks here. He had week 5 against Tampa, 88 yards. And these are bad defense. He basically. Seattle, he had 65, 70 yards against Carolina, 91 for 2 touchdowns against Tampa. And as soon as he plays some good defenses, they shut him down. So it's like, I just don't see, he's got to be schemed up. He's going to have to be a schemed up guy, which when we talk about these like LaVisca Chenaults and these like scheme it up Tutu Atwells, like that's what a schemed up player should be, not a tight end. You shouldn't be scheming touches to a tight end. It just doesn't work like that. So I thank God that Justin has TJ Hawkinson, because this pick has not worked out at all. At 103, it's a sad turn of events for the Bombers in this scenario, but I don't see how it gets better in Falcons territory at all. So anywho, we're over an hour. What a good podcast we had. We hope that everybody, maybe we'll have to do another watch party this Sunday or something like that for the finale here of the season.
The Thursday night game this week is really good.
Is it now?
It's Packers Lions.
Oh, that is a fun one. Is it in Detroit? Damn, I was hoping it'd be a cold weather game. But we accept. Yeah, we'll have to think about that. That's a good one. Just huge games this week. Obviously, we're really interested in that 6 seed battle, and then we'll get truly good clarity on just the overall playoff structure as soon as probably the next time we talk to you here on the podcast. So I think we'll do this one more time. We're gonna run you out with today's